It's live, but it'll take a second for it to pull up. Then my favorite thing, it'll echo back at me. Okay, we are live streaming across the world. Mock trial court is in session, and I will turn it over to the judge to begin the trial.
Right. And Mr. Arod, I presume we go through the same instructions, even though some of these don't apply because we're doing this video and live streaming.
Correct.
We swear in everyone and all of that. All right. Thank
Right.
you. All right, so there's some preliminary matters that I'm required to address with all of the teams. This is a little different because this is being done virtually, but I believe some of the same rules apply, that there's no video recording allowed unless the teams are recording around and the other team has consented to the recording. There's not to be any recording by the folks who are watching it live stream. No recesses will be allowed with the exception of those granted for a health emergency, and especially not between the end of witness examination and the beginning of closing arguments. We've already covered the scoring panelists. They don't believe that they have any conflict of interest, which would require them to be reassigned to a different team or a different courtroom. I want to remind the teams and the coaches that any disputes which arise out of this competition must be reported in accordance with the competition rules. Your compliance with time requirements will be considered in scoring your individual performances. And now I'm going to swear in each of the team members, the gallery, which doesn't really apply here, the scoring panelists, and the witnesses. So I'll first ask that the team members raise your right hands. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
I do.
Right. Those of you who are witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition?
I do.
And I'll still administer the oath to those who are technically in the gallery live streaming. We may not hear a response, but teacher and attorney coaches, family members, and friends, do you promise to represent yourselves as positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sportsmanship during and after this mock trial round? And then scoring panelists, please raise your hands. Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. All right, so are we then ready to begin? Wheatgrass?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Buffalo Grass, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So the plaintiff may proceed with their opening statements.
Good afternoon, members of the jury, Your Honor, and opposing counsel. Today we are here to discuss Dakota Weirs. Dakota Weirs is a 20-year-old who, in the prime of their life, have been diagnosed with cancer, specifically non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It has wreaked havoc on her life, and before cancer, has contributed to her community and played the piano passionately. They had plans to go to Juilliard on a scholarship, which is one of the most prestigious colleges in the nation. This is now gone, and because of Velas Fertilizer's negligence. As a plaintiff, this case, we must present the preponderance of the evidence which is more credible and more likely than evidence provided by the opposing counsel. In order to do this, we will call 3 witnesses. First is Carson Durst, a smart young person with a promising future in the fertilizer industry and had worked their way up from an intern to a value employee at Lush and was fired because they knew too much about Lush. And Lush thought they were safe due to a non-disclosure cause. Next to Carson is Casey Rogers, who has a brilliant mind, who has years of research looking at the impacts chemicals have on the human body, specifically the impact Drufo has on the human body. They have 2 publications, research based off of specific communities impacted by Drufo, rather than vague statistical generalizations, and they have looked at Dakota's medical record and were the only ones to do so. Finally, we have Dakota Weirs, a young person who was struck down with cancer and at the fault of Lush Fertilizer's hands. We are confident that we'll be able to show that Lush Fertilizer was negligent and that damages should be rewarded to Dakota Weirs.
Thank you. And the defense, would you please make your opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court, counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Today, I am accompanied by my fellow attorneys, Ms. Apodaca and Ms. Joe, to represent our client, Lush Fertilizer. Taking a glimpse at this case, 2 things are made crystal clear. 1, Dakota Weirs has devastatingly been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma. 2, Dakota Weirs named Lush Fertilizer culpable for this diagnosis. Upon further inspection today, you will understand that this unfortunate diagnosis for Dakota Weirs was the fault of many factors. Upon reviewing the evidence, however, it will become apparent that Lush Fertilizer is not at fault for Dakota's development of non-Hodgkin lymphoma. To introduce Lush Fertilizer a bit more, it is a company focused on making fertilizers healthier for the environment through revolutionary products such as Drufo. Drufo is a chemical compound which decreases nitrates in fertilizers, hence making it cleaner for the environment. This chemical compound Drufo is also what Dakota Weirs believes caused her illness. After happening to see it being mentioned on TV, Dakota Weirs is connected to Lush Fertilizer and Drufo through her work as a gardener. Since the age of 14, she worked at Haven Landscaping, a company that uses Lush Fertilizer's products among several other fertilizers. Today, you will hear in-depth details about working at Haven Landscaping from Ms. Weirs directly. She will also tell you about her working lifestyle as a gardener. More importantly, however, she will tell you how this did not include her wearing any form of protective gear. And keep in mind, this was whilst working with fertilizers every single day at her job. Additionally, Dakota will also not be able to prove her damages today. Since no doctor has told her she can't recover, her damages remain uncertain. And with uncertain damages, you cannot measure the exact implications of a certain illness or disease. You can also not accurately project the future and what it may or may not look like. Moving on, the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, Blake Doncourt, will also serve as a witness in this trial. He will provide you more information on the company and especially his knowledge on what goes into safety tests and in-house studies. While he is the CEO of a major company, he will show you how he does prioritize charity donations and continues to work as an environmental steward. Following Blake Doncourt, you will also hear from Skylar Weirs, yes, brother of Dakota, but more importantly, someone who has spent a year reading and researching about the effects of Drufo. Throughout this time, he has followed statistical evidence from credible sources such as the United States Department to come to his conclusion that Drufo was not only safe, but a revolutionary and beneficial chemical compound. Today, you will also learn that no one fertilizer is truly safe. And because of this fact, those who are exposed to fertilizers on a regular basis, such as Dakota, will simply have an increased susceptibility to the harms which come with all fertilizers. This fact will be further elaborated on by our last witness, Dr. Devin Williams. Dr. Williams has been working in the field of toxicology for the larger part of his life. He has a PhD in toxicology and has been involved in many in-house studies on toxicology as well. During this trial, he will help provide insight on how cancer develops and will share how lifestyles play a role in this. Additionally, Dr. Williams will more importantly tell you that the fertilizers made by Lush are no more carcinogenic than other fertilizers out there. In conclusion, while the means at which we are brought here today are very unfortunate, the blame of the plaintiffs is misled. During this trial, this will be proven time and again. Dakota Weirs does not have certain damages, Drufo has not been significantly linked to cancer, and at the end of the day, it will come out that Dakota made multiple poor decisions and put herself in harm's way. Because of this reason, the plaintiff will ultimately fail to meet their burden of proof. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Hasselby. So is the plaintiff then ready to call their first witness?
I'd like to call Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
Okay. Ms. Rogers, can you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
All right, you may proceed.
Please state your full name for the court and spell the last.
Dr. Casey Rogers, Rogers.
What is your current profession?
I currently am employed at the University of California at Berkeley. I teach horticulture entomology introduction, horticulture entomology food crops, and herbicide selectivity in action.
Do you have a college education?
Yes, I have my PhD in agriculture and entomology from the University of California at Berkeley, and I also have my Bachelor of Science in Agriculture and Chemistry from Colorado State University.
Are you published?
I have published numerous scholarly articles on the negative and harmful effects of prolonged exposure to various chemicals, including Drufo.
Is there any research that pertains to Drufo?
Yes, 4 out of the 6 articles that I have published have to do with Drufo, ranging from 2013 to 2017, 2 of which deal with human exposure to Drufo.
Please look at Exhibit 7.
Can I, just one second, I'm having a
Is this
hard
list of
time.
publications?
I'm
Yes.
having a hard time hearing you. Counsel, could you maybe speak a little closer to your microphone?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Is this your list of publications?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to enter Exhibit number 7 as evidence.
I'm sorry, exhibit which one?
Objection.
And what's the objection?
Lack of foundation.
Your response, sir?
No response.
Okay, I'm going to sustain I would sustain the objection, but because I don't believe there has been adequate foundation laid if it's for the CV. You haven't had her identify that it's a true and accurate copy, but for mock trial purposes, I'll allow you to proceed.
Dr. Rogers, are there any other projects of interest in this case?
Yes, my research interest lies in pesticide chemistry and toxicology and the mode of action against organic toxicants.
Are any of these interests impacting current projects?
Yes, my current project focuses on pesticide mode of action and metabolism. I'm very passionate about it because it will help minimize hazards of exposure for humans, domestic animals, and other non-target species.
Does any of your research work impact the pesticide industry?
I worked as a research analyst for a large multinational chemical company.
At this time, I'd like the court to recognize Dr. Casey Rogers as an expert in pesticide chemistry and toxicology.
Any objections from defense?
No objections, Your Honor.
The court will so recognize this expert.
So, Dr. Rogers, what is Drufo?
Drufo was developed in 2003 by the scientists on Lush Fertilizers research and development team. Drufo is a patented ingredient that Lush uses in all of its products as a bonding agent. Specifically, Drufo is used in fertilizer to keep the fertilizer preserved and intact.
Why did you conduct the study on Drufo?
I had a concern about the safety. I had been hearing reports on the potentially negative effects of the substance. I wanted to study the chemical and determine any side effects or negative effects. And it was already known that Drufo is a carcinogen in rats.
So, moving on to the next question. What is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Non-Hodgkin lymphoma is a specific type of cancer which affects the white blood cells. It affects the immune system, and those with the lymphoma can become immune compromised and more susceptible to disease.
Is this cancer environmental?
It's usually caused by exposure to an environmental condition, including pesticides. The toxins in the pesticides can be absorbed through the skin or inhaled through the respiratory system.
So, have you looked into the harmful effects of prolonged exposure to chemicals and their impact on the body?
Yes, I have.
Have you analyzed Lush Fertilizer's products?
Yes, I've personally analyzed the chemical makeup of each product using a mass spectrometer.
Why are you so concerned about Drufo and Lush Fertilizers?
As I stated earlier, it was already known that Drufo is a carcinogen in rats.
Did you design a study to look at the impact of Drufo on humans?
Yes.
What were the parameters of the study?
A control group was studied and they had never been exposed to Drufo. I also studied a group of people who used products containing Drufo on occasion and a group of people who were exposed to Drufo on a regular.
What were your findings?
The study found an increase in serious health conditions and diagnosis in those individuals who were exposed to Drufo as compared to the control group. Specifically, the study found higher incidences of cancer, including non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
You mentioned that your study was inconclusive. Does this worry you?
No, this study was based off of sound research that has been published.
Is there a strong correlation between Drufo and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Yes, specifically, the study found higher incidences of cancer, as I stated, and that included non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
After all your research, is it likely that Dakota Weir's cancer was caused by exposure to Drufo?
In my opinion, yes.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. So Dr. Rogers, I'm just going to ask you a few questions, okay? First off, you and other researchers don't know or have not touched on the exact cause of Ms. Weir's illness yet. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You also researched other potentially carcinogenic substances. Is that correct?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you testify prior to this?
I'm sorry, can you please restate the question?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you just said. You were breaking up. What did you say?
Can you please restate the question?
Okay. You testified before coming to this. Did you testify before this?
No, I have not.
Mhm.
But yes, I have. Yes, I have.
And you were trying to be truthful when you testified, just like you are today, isn't that right?
That is correct.
Can you?
I apologize, I cannot hear you.
Miss So, you're breaking up quite a bit. We're not getting audio for you. I can't hear you now. Perhaps it's your headphones.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can hear you better now.
Okay. Then I'm going to move on. Can you turn to page 28 in your witness statement?
Yes, I can.
Is that your signature there?
Yes.
So, in your witness statement, you said that you were studying. I'm sorry, please give me a second. carcinogenic substances. Isn't that right?
I apologize, I could not hear the question.
And right here in your witness statement, it states that you're researching potentially carcinogenic substances. Is that correct?
What line?
32.
What was the question?
You also researched other potentially carcinogenic substances, correct?
I studied harmful substances, not necessarily carcinogenic substances.
Okay. But you researched other substances, including Drufo, isn't that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Then is it possible that these substances alone caused the illness rather than Drufo specifically?
It is possible.
Okay, moving forward. Didn't you say that you believed Drufo was rushed to the market without sufficient studies on its safety?
I did.
But you didn't know if Lush had taken any precautionary measures. You just believed that they hadn't. Am I right?
That is correct.
And you've also been examining ways to mitigate and prevent exposure to Drufo, right?
Can you please restate the question?
You've been examining ways to mitigate and prevent exposure to Drufo, right?
I did. However, that study came back inconclusive.
Okay. But during that study, you said that long sleeves should definitely be worn for those working closely with Drufo to prevent absorption of chemicals. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
And long pants as well?
Correct.
A protective face mask?
Correct.
Now, can you please direct your attention to Exhibit 1 in your materials? And please let me know when you're there.
All right.
Can you please tell us what this is?
Safety recommendations.
Please.
I apologize. I did not hear.
So
I'm
I
sorry.
don't think,
What company?
go ahead.
Okay. What company's safety recommendations are these?
Lush.
And what are these safety recommendations on?
Protective measures.
Isn't that correct?
I apologize. I did not hear the question.
Lush's packaging labels provide the same warnings and suggestions that you did. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Moving forward, there's also a high survival rate for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Also, you've never testified as an expert in the court of law before, right?
That is correct. I have not.
You said more lawsuits would open up, and didn't you want to testify in those too?
I did because I believe that my studies would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. Testifying as an expert in court is a big deal, isn't it?
Correct.
Is it true that you're getting paid to testify?
That is not correct.
So you're doing this for free?
Correct.
You were hired by Dakota Weirs to testify for free?
That is correct.
I'm sorry, Ms. Zoe, I didn't catch what you said.
I said no further questions.
All right, thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, can this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, thank you, Dr. Rogers. Who would you like to call as your next witness?
Can I have Blake Donkert come to the stand?
All right, Mr. Miss or Mr. Donkert.
Mrs. Donkert.
All right, Mrs. Donkert.
Carson Durst. Oh, I'm so sorry. Can I have Carson Durst come up to the stand, please?
Carson Durst, if you'll please come to the stand.
Can you please state your name and for the court, can you spell it for record?
I'm Carson Durst, D-U-R-S-T.
Why are you here today?
I'm here on behalf of the plaintiff against Lush Fertilizers.
Do you have a college degree?
Yes, I have a bachelor's in chemical engineering
Where have you earned most of your chemical knowledge?
while working in Lush Fertilizers.
What are your day-to-day responsibilities in Lush Fertilizers?
I would be part of patent bonding agent called Drufo.
Are you currently employed?
Yes, at Terra's Greenery.
Was this your first job as a developer for fertilizer?
No, I worked at Lush Fertilizers.
How did you gain this employment?
Lush was hiring interns for the summer of 2003, so I put my application as for hiring in the research and develop team.
How long were you employed by Lush Fertilizer?
Around 3 years.
What was your first job function at Lush Fertilizers?
I was assigned with finding how safe Drufo is and if it is important to Lush.
Did you ever submit work for evaluation to higher management?
Yes, on June 10th, 2003, I documented a study of Drufo in my lab notebook.
What was in that document?
It was a study from England of chemical compound in Drufo that found increased instances of carcinogens in rats.
Were you ever involved in higher level meetings?
Yes, one in particular was on December of 2003.
What was discussed during that conference?
We talked about our analysis on the component we researched.
During your time at Lush, what did you witness?
In a multitude of times, the company uses disinformation to their advantage.
Can you explain some of those instances?
At the meeting I talked about before, Alex Monroe, who is an upper Ulican manager, said to keep it in the walls, even though a scientist expressed concerns.
Concerns about what?
That Drufo could be linked to non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
Did they express that later in any report?
No. A couple of months later, when the copy of the study came to me, it said we needed further research of how to know if the chemical compounds caused long-term effects as it suggested to bake Drufo.
Why would you need to bake it?
It would eliminate the possibilities that Drufo could be carcinogenic. But this company framed this in a way that made Lush look like they'd be going far beyond necessary.
Is this a common thing of Lush?
Yes, they are always deliberately fitting data into the narrative desired by upper management.
What's an example?
Because of my participation in the research, I found it very misleading when they left out some data in the final report.
How did you rise the ranks so fast?
I was performing at a higher level than the other engineers. As I stated before, I was working with upper management and had a hand in the research as an intern.
Have people ever questioned your role in the company?
Yes, those are just rumors from the people who don't like me, though. Plus, Blake wouldn't-
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Response?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The objection was to relevance. Is there a response to that objection?
Which question? Oh, rising the ranks?
Whether you testified about rumors and there was an objection to that.
Oh, well, I asked why he asked rise the ranks so fast, and Carson just answered the question.
Okay, I'm going to overrule the objection. I find it does go to credibility and motivation, so I'll allow him to continue.
Um, have any, oh God. Why wouldn't Blake just hire you? Well, Blake is a businessman, so by no means would he jeopardize his company for an intern if he didn't think I was qualified. Have you had any doubts about Blake? Yes, he hasn't been acting like of himself as of lately because of his divorce, so it could be hindering his decision making. How do you suppose? Blake is a think before.
Objection, Your Honor.
I went to his office.
Hold on a second. We have an objection. What's the objection?
Sorry, I didn't.
Speculation.
Speculation.
Okay.
Okay.
Your response to that objection?
No response.
Okay, I'll sustain that objection. He can't get in the head of the other person, so I'll find that it is speculative.
Okay. I heard, oh God. I think those are all my questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Durst. My name is Audrey Hazelby, and today I will be asking you a few questions, okay?
Okay.
Is it true that you and Charles Doncourt were best friends growing up?
Yes.
You two even went to college together, correct?
Yes.
So you were very close with the Doncourt family, correct?
Yes.
And this includes Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush Fertilizer?
Yes.
In 2003, you began working with Blake Doncourt's company, Lush Fertilizer, correct?
Correct.
As an intern?
Yes.
Is it true that these internships were very hard for people to get without any work experience?
Yes.
So your relationship with the Doncourts played a role in your hiring, correct?
Carson? Yes.
However, you no longer work for Blake Doncourt's company, correct?
Correct.
Is it true that you were fired from your job?
Yes.
And prior to your termination, many coworkers and staff at Lush Fertilizer made complaints about you, correct?
Yes.
And it even went so far to where you had to sign a performance improvement plan?
Yes.
Would it be correct to say that this made you feel upset towards Blake Doncourt?
Yes.
So you began searching for new jobs, specifically one at Terrace Greenery, correct?
Yes.
Is it true that Terrace Greenery is Lush Fertilizer's main competitor?
Yes.
And are you aware of the extreme rivalry between the two companies?
Yes.
And were you aware at the time?
Yes.
Moving forward, Carson Durst, I will be asking you a few questions regarding your confidentiality agreement with Lush Fertilizer. Carson Durst, would you please review your case materials for Exhibit 5 and let me know when you're ready to proceed?
I have it.
You signed this confidentiality agreement with Lush Fertilizer on June 1st, 2003, correct?
Correct.
Your name and position are included on this document, correct?
Yes.
And everything on this document is accurate?
Correct.
Your Honor, permission to admit Exhibit 5 into evidence?
The plaintiffs, does plaintiff have any objection to Exhibit 5?
No, Your Honor.
Court will receive Exhibit 5.
Carson Durst, would you mind reading the first sentence of Agreement 1, non-compete covenant?
During the employment and for a period of 2 years after the separation of employment for any reason, the employee will not directly or indirectly engage in any competitive business and shall not become directly or indirectly engaged in any business that would benefit from disclosure of Lush's trades secrets.
And you would violate this, and you would get hired by Terrace Greenery 6 months later, correct?
Correct.
Finally, my remaining questions for you address your work with Drufo while working at Lush Fertilizer. Is it true that you were involved in in-house studies testing whether Drufo is possibly carcinogenic in humans?
Correct.
Scientists worked on the study alongside you, correct?
Yes.
When the study concluded, you received the results of this study.
Yes.
Did you have access to all the information that went into this study?
No.
And by law, for a chemical compound to be deemed safe, it has to fall below a certain legal parameter of its likelihood to be carcinogenic, correct?
Yes.
And it's true that the results did indeed fall below that legal parameter, correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Durst. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hazelby. Do we have any redirect of this witness? Does the plaintiff wish to do any redirect examination of this witness?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Would you like to call your next witness then?
Yes, Your Honor. Could I have Dakota Weirs to the stand, please?
Okay, Dakota Weirs, if you'll please come to testify.
Please state your name and spell the last for the court.
Dakota Weirs, Weirs.
Can you briefly state why you are here today?
I believe Lush Fertilizer is responsible for my illness.
What is your illness?
It's a type of
Hold on one moment. I'm not able to see this witness and I can't hear that witness very well either.
One second.
There we are. Okay. I'm still not getting very good audio for you. Are you in the same room as the attorney asking you questions?
Yes.
Okay, I think there may be some feedback between your devices, so you're going to need to mute your microphones when you're not talking, because that helps eliminate the feedback. And then make sure you're speaking up loudly and clearly into your microphone when it's unmuted, okay? All right, you may continue.
How has cancer impacted your health?
Well, I used to be very active in the community, and now I can barely help around the house. All I can do is sit on the couch all day.
Are you in pain?
Yes, I have swollen lymph nodes, chest pains, chills, and severe abdomen swelling.
How has cancer impacted your education?
I had to turn down my full ride scholarship to Juilliard. It does hurt so bad to sit at the piano seat.
Why do you believe Lush Fertilizers is responsible for your cancer?
I used it at my job, Haven Landscaping.
How long did you work in the landscaping industry?
Since I was 14.
What were some of your responsibilities?
Because I started my job there young, I primarily worked with weeds and fertilizers. I couldn't use any of the big machinery.
Did you use any Lush products while working at Haven Landscaping?
Yes, I did.
Do you know if there's anything different about Lush Fertilizer in comparison to other products?
It contains.
How do you know?
I saw an ingredient list.
Why is this a concern for you?
I believe Judo caused my cancer.
You seem so sure. Why is that?
It all started when I was watching the news. They had a segment about Lush Fertilizer and Judo.
What was this news about?
It was about leaked documents that showed that the company lied about the safety of its products. They knew that Judo caused non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
What did you feel after hearing this news?
Complete and utter shock. I had used Lush Fertilizer.
What did you do next?
I called my old boss.
Why did you call your boss?
I wanted him to be aware of the life-threatening dangers of Lush Fertilizer, but I also wanted to make completely sure that Lush product that I used for sure contained Judo.
What did your boss say?
He confirmed that the Lush product I used contained Judo. It was right there on the label.
Was there anything else discussed?
He also mentioned that he did not see any warnings on the label, just recommendations. Even wearing a mask was just a recommendation.
Do you see any warnings included on the label?
No, just recommendation.
Did this seem unusual to you?
Absolutely.
Did you call anybody else?
Yes, I called my dad. He's my rock.
Did he support you during your trying time?
Absolutely. He even did some research and found out that French version is different than the version here.
So how is it different?
The French version does not contain Drufo.
Did you do any more research?
Yes, I found out that the French version is sold all over the world, including Haiti, Iberia, Canada, Congo, and Cote d'Ivoire. I just don't understand why it's not sold here.
Earlier, you mentioned the impact this had on your physical and emotional state. Has this impacted your financial situation?
Yes, the medical bills have been piling up.
Who has been paying a majority of your bills?
My father, he's my hero and I love him so much, to the dismay of my sister Skylar.
What do you mean?
Skylar doesn't care about me. She only cares about how much money will be left when my parents die and whether or not it'll pay off her gambling debts.
Did it have an impact on your mental health?
To know that my twin doesn't care about me? Yes. The coolest
Objection, Your Honor.
And the objection is?
Improper character evidence.
Mr. Matthias, your response?
No response, Your Honor.
Okay. I'm going to overrule the objection. You may continue.
Can you ask the question again?
Did it have an impact on your mental health?
Yes, but the cruelest aspect is that knowing if I'm going to die young.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Okay,
You
Ms.
may-
Weirs, I'm going to be asking you some questions today, okay?
Okay.
So can I have you look through your materials for Exhibit 1?
Yes,
Do you recognize this exhibit?
I do.
Can you explain what is on this exhibit?
It's an ingredient list of Lush fertilizer and it shows some safety recommendations.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of the label that you saw when working with this fertilizer?
It is.
And this is the fertilizer that you used when you were working on your job, is that correct?
That's correct.
Your Honor, I move to admit this exhibit into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Court will receive Exhibit 1.
Okay, under the UZ safety recommendations, the label clearly states to wear a mask. Is that correct, Ms. Weirs?
That's correct, but it's not a warning.
And you decided to ignore this and proceeded to not wear a mask when working with this fertilizer. Is that correct?
Right, but again, it's not a warning. It's just a recommendation.
Okay, but on this label, it clearly suggests that you wear protective clothing when dealing with the fertilizer. Is that correct?
Yeah, but it's just a
Ms.
recommendation.
Weirs, a simple yes or no will suffice. Thank you. Yet you still overlooked these recommendations when dealing with the product. Is that correct?
If I knew it had caused cancer, I might have done things differently.
Ms. Weirs, as I stated earlier, I'm just looking for a simple yes or no answer to the question, okay?
Okay.
So your boss told you to cover your face when working with chemicals. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And despite all of these recommendations, you still decided to ignore everything. And is that correct?
That's correct, but it was summer and it was really hot and my coworkers didn't either.
Okay, I'm not asking about your coworkers. I'm asking about you right now, okay? You mentioned working with other chemicals on your job. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And when you worked with these other chemicals and fertilizers, you still wore no protective gear at all. Is that correct?
That's right, but it was summer.
Okay, I'm not asking about the weather. I'm simply asking about your own personal decisions. Okay, Ms. Weirs? And besides the fact that no one else at your workplace wore protective gear, there really was no reason for you not to wear this protective gear. Is that correct?
That's correct, but nobody else wore them either. It wasn't just me.
Yes, I understand that no one else wore them, but this is your own personal choice. That is correct.
Yes.
And you were well aware of the fact that you were supposed to be wearing this protective gear when dealing with the fertilizer. Is that correct?
Yes, but Lush had no warnings. They were just recommendations.
I'm not asking about the wordings right now, Ms. Weirs. Thank you. So it is definitely very possible that any of these other fertilizers or chemicals that you use when working with fertilizers could have caused your cancer. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I'd just like to switch topics now. So you visited doctors before and they've discussed what the future of your life looks like when dealing with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Is that correct?
My doctors are hopeful, but my witness statement doesn't talk about that much.
Okay, your doctor has not told you that you're going to die in the future, though. Is that correct?
That's right.
And no doctor has told you that you can't make a recovery from this disease. Is that correct?
That's correct. But they don't know
And
what the future holds.
okay, so surviving is still very much in the picture for you, Ms. Weirs. Is that correct?
That's correct, but I am in pain and declining.
Okay, I understand, but no doctor has told you that you're going to die from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you, Ms. Weirs. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Apodaca. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, can this witness be excused?
Yes.
Okay, and does that conclude your case for the plaintiff? Or do you have another witness?
No, Your Honor, that's all the witnesses.
All right, thank you. Would the defense like to call their first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Blake Doncourt to the stand.
Okay, Blake Doncourt.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, you may proceed.
Questions today. Can you please state your name for the record?
I am Blake Doncourt.
What is your relation to Lush Fertilizer?
I am the CEO of Lush Fertilizer.
How long have you worked for Lush Fertilizer?
I've worked since 2000, so about 22 years now.
What has your role been in developing Lush as a company?
Well, like I said before, since 2000, I've basically been at the head of the company and tried my best to increase profits and make the company a functional business that it has become today.
Great. What does Lush value as a company?
I'd say some of our top priorities are definitely the safety of our customers and our employees, and basically just making sure our products that we sell to the market are as safe as they can be.
Thank you, Mr. Doncourt. What does Lush do with the profit that it gains as a company?
I'd say one of our biggest accomplishments is definitely every year we give 10% of our annual profits out to a charity.
Thank you. What are some notable accomplishments that you and your company have attained because of your contributions to the environment?
In 2019, we won the SEAL Business Award, and in 2020, I personally received the Champions of the Earth award.
So earlier you mentioned that Lush donates some of its profit to charities. So can you specify what these charities are working towards?
Some of the most biggest charities are probably the ones that are cleaning the oceans and also making or decreasing the nitrogen footprint in our environment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Doncourt. What are some things that Lush has done directly to help with educating people about environmental issues?
Basically, I would just say our main thing is basically just setting up or providing to charities and basically just helping these charities spread the word of that we just basically need to save this planet. We need to help it out.
Thank you, Mr. Doncourt. So I'm going to switch topics to talk more about the products that Lush produces, okay?
All right.
So did Lush conduct thorough research as a company to ensure that its products were safe enough to be allowed on the market?
Yes, my researchers nor the EPA found that Drufa was carcinogenic.
Thank you, Mr. Doncourt. Would you have allowed any of Lush's products to be on the market if they were carcinogenic?
Never.
And so you mentioned your research team earlier, and did they discover any carcinogenic products, any carcinogenic properties in your products?
No, not to my knowledge.
And do you believe that Lush could be responsible for causing Dakota's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
I do not think we are the main cause of his disease.
Thank you, Mr. Doncourt. And just changing subject, can you describe your relation to Carson Durst?
Carson Durst was a former intern of the company, and we definitely had a big impact of getting him into the company, but he has left, or or previously he has left and gone to our biggest competitor, Terra Greenery.
Thank you, Mr. Doncourt. And do you think that it could be possible that another factor contributed to Dakota's cancer?
Of course.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Doncourt. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Apodaca. Do we have any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
So you are the CEO of Lush Fertilizers, right?
Yes.
And you helped to get this company on the map since 2000.
Yes.
And it went from an unknown fertilizer company to an international competitor, right?
Yes.
And Lush is used by individuals, businesses, and governments.
You are correct.
Would you say you'd pour your soul into this company?
Yes, I put a lot of time, effort, and work into this company and making sure that it has been the best it can. I mean, I've been here since the beginning, and I always want to make sure this company stays profitable and does good, I guess.
Thank you. And you were recognized for your humane work, right?
Yeah, like I've like I've said before, like the Champions of the Earth award that I won in 2020, and if things hadn't gone poorly, I wish I would have won it in 2021.
So you're saying that the case might derail your achievements?
No, I would not say that.
Okay. Let me move on to one of your employees that you used to have. So are you familiar with Carson Durst?
Yes, he is a former intern of our company.
He was also an employee though.
Yes, intern and employee.
Okay. And he was part of the research development team, right?
Yes, you are correct. He was one of the head people working in that field.
And when he learned so much from your company, correct? For your trade, your experience, and even developed his technical research skills?
Yeah, I mean, since he joined our company, I would definitely say he learned a lot of his skills through like our research. And yeah, he definitely he was definitely one of the main people there.
But despite his accomplishments, Carson was fired?
Yes, he was.
As an employee, he probably earned a regular employee wage, correct?
Yes.
And after he was fired, he began to work at Terra's Greenery, right?
Yep, Terra Greenery, our biggest competitor.
And you claim that he earns more money than any researcher should earn.
In my witness statement, I did say that, yes.
A wage that Lush couldn't afford?
At that time, probably not.
Why would you say that?
I would just say like right now he's definitely getting paid a lot more. I mean, he was definitely at the beginning stages, like he joined at the beginning stage of our company. So we definitely weren't making as much as Terra, and right now he's getting paid a lot. Definitely not what we could have paid him back then.
Okay, let's start talking about your products at Lush. So you don't bake any of the ingredients, is that correct?
No, we do not.
Why not?
Well, we increase our profits 6% the first year by not baking it, and an additional 2% each year.
So you're just doing it because it costs less, correct?
Yes, those profits that we're gaining from not baking it can go to our employees, it can go to safety, and it can go to basically helping our company and making sure it's as good as it can be.
So do you think it's too expensive for the little risk that it elevated if the ingredients are not baked?
Yes, I think it is a little overkill.
I believe you have Exhibit 8 in front of you.
Yes, just give me one quick sec. You said Exhibit 8, correct?
Yes.
Yes, I have that.
So in dollar amounts, you would say Lush is roughly making 1.8 million.
Yes.
And you need to show a profit because you have to pay back the Wolchu capitalists.
Yes.
I heard that you recently got divorced.
Objection, relevance.
Counsel, your response to the objection?
I'm just establishing motive for money issues.
All right, I'll overrule the objection for purposes of motive.
Let me re-ask that question. So during that time, you were getting a divorce,
Yes.
and now you must pay a whole bunch of money to your ex-partner, this gold digger, as you call her.
In my witness statement, I did refer to her as a gold digger.
All right, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Any redirect for this witness?
No redirect, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, can this witness be excused? Your next witness then?
The defendant calls Skylar Weirs to the stand.
Okay, if Skylar Weirs would please come to the stand. You may proceed.
I'm just going to ask you a few questions, Mr. Weirs. So, can you state your name for the record?
I'm Skylar Weirs.
And what is your profession?
I am an investigative journalist for the Rationalist.
And what do you specifically write for the Rationalist?
Miss So, we're not hearing you.
I'm sorry, let me re-say that. What do you specifically write for the Rationalist?
I write stories on the individual health of individuals and agriculture.
Do you have any background knowledge on Drupal?
Yes, I do. I wrote a series of articles, and I spent a year studying the effects of Jufa.
Miss So, we're not hearing you. Miss So, do you have your microphone turned on?
Okay. Have you been published a lot?
Yes, I have.
And how many years have you been working on Drupal?
I studied Jufa for an entire year.
Your Honor, I would like to offer Skylar Weirs as an expert on modern agritech.
And the plaintiff's response, any objection to me still recognizing him?
No objection, Your Honor.
In court proceedings, I may not recognize the witness in the specific field for which he's been endorsed, but for mock trial purposes, I'll recognize him as an expert.
Thank you, Your Honor. Moving forward, what is your relation to Dakota?
Dakota is my twin.
And why didn't you take a job in landscaping with your sibling, as you so stated?
Because I am allergic to grass.
And how has your relationship with them been?
I would not say I have a stereotypical close relationship with my twin, but she is family.
Are you worried about this case affecting your relationship with your family further by going against Dakota?
Yes, I am, but Drifo is such a revolutionary product that I need to do what's right and talk about how great it is.
Is Dakota's cancer treatment expensive?
Yes, they.
And are your parents alive?
Yes, my father is alive, but my mother is dead.
Do you believe that when they pass away, you will inherit anything?
Yes.
Are you wealthy?
I am not.
Is there a big portion of your inheritance from your parents dedicated to Dakota's treatment?
Yes, my father's already said that if Dakota were to lose this case, he would take on most of the financial billings for her treatment.
So if Dakota's side lost this case, how would you be financially?
I would be negatively financially, because most of that money would go to Dakota.
So why are you defending the use of Drufo?
Because it is a huge revolutionary product for modern agri-tech, and it might even be bigger than GMOs, and it helps the environment instead of hurts it.
Is Drufo the only possibly harmful substance found in grass seed products?
No, it is not.
And are there any benefits of using Drufo instead of these other substances like arsenic and glyphosate?
Yes, both arsenic and glyphosate, have both had links to carcinogens and cancer, while there's not been a study for Drufo linking it to cancer.
And how many studies have there been on this?
There have been several studies.
You said Drufo was less harmful to the environment than other chemicals, so how?
Is a bonding agent, it puts less nitrogen into the environment, causing less nitrogen runoff and less dead zones in lakes and oceans.
So how do you say Drufo would compare to other agriculture companies?
That's a revolutionary product, and that it deserves to be recognized as one of the better ones.
Who do you think Dakota should have looked to for the cause of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma instead?
I think there's several places, such as any of the other fertilizers she was working at, or a landscaping company for not making her wear the protective clothing to protect her from the fertilizers.
And do you think Dakota's ailment would have been worse had she used other pesticides rather than Drufo?
Yes, I do.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Mears. No further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any cross? Cross-examination?
Okay. I have a few questions for you. So, Mr. Weirs, you were confident enough in your research that you testified for less fertilizer against Dakota, right? Instead of Dakota.
Yes, that is true.
Could you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'll re-ask the question. So, you were confident enough in your own research that you testified for less fertilizer instead of Dakota, correct?
Correct.
You spent about a year researching modern agri-tech?
Yes, that is correct.
Aside from this, you have no formal education on this matter.
No, I do not.
Therefore, you only have a limited understanding pertaining to these products compared to the expertise of professionals?
Yes, that's true.
Okay, moving on. Back to your research. You came to the conclusion that Drufo is a safe product?
Yes.
However, products like these are inherently poison, correct?
Yes, but all fertilizer, all pesticides are considered poison and
I prefer
dangerous.
to answer the yes or no, please.
Yes.
Please turn to Exhibit 3 and tell me when you're there.
Okay, I'm there.
Okay, so the article explicitly claims that nitrogen causes lymphoma and leukemia.
Yes, in rats, not in humans.
Yes or no, please.
Or yes.
Nitrogen is already known to cause various types of cancer, baby blue syndrome, and other medical conditions.
This is correct.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to enter Exhibit 3 as evidence.
And any objection?
Sorry, Your Honor. Objection, lack of foundation.
Okay. Response to the objection?
No response.
Okay, I'll sustain the objection. There was no foundation for where this exhibit came from or what the witness's relationship to this exhibit is sustained.
Okay, so I'd like you to now turn to Exhibit 2, please.
Excuse me, what exhibit again?
Exhibit number 2.
Okay, I'm there.
So as you could read, does less fertilizer contain nitrogen?
Yes, it does.
So consequently, does that make less a dangerous product?
Well, yes and no, because all of them contain nitrogen, so that would not classify Lush as being the only dangerous product on the market.
Can you answer with a yes or no?
Yes,
So despite this, you do not believe this is the cause of Dakota's condition.
that is correct.
Okay, moving on. So Mr. Veers, you wrote for the Rationalist, correct?
Yes,
Writing for this magazine lost you several job opportunities.
that is correct.
So your writing career has not been able to fully support you.
Yes, I've had to work part-time as an Applebee's server.
Objection, Your Honor, relevant.
Response to the objection?
It goes in motive.
Okay, I'll overrule the objection. I agree.
Okay, so Mr. Weers, because you chose to forego college for your writing career, your father has ceased to financially support you.
This is correct.
Your father also decided to shoulder the cost of Dakota's medical bills, correct?
This is correct.
So if I also understand correctly, you also have monetary debt from gambling misfortunes?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
All right, thank you, sir. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Mr. Weirs, do you think that science can ever be defined with a yes or no answer?
It cannot.
And why is that?
Science is more complicated than that, and a yes or no will not answer the question to the level that it needs to be answered.
And as you've mentioned about nitrogen in fertilizers, how do you think that Drufo compares to other fertilizer products?
Well, the nitrogen is less impactful and gets into the soil less, causing less nitrogen runoffs into our oceans and waters, causing less dead zones.
And just to reiterate, do you have a college degree?
I do not.
And do you think that a certificate on a piece of paper makes a person more or less knowledgeable?
I do not.
I'm sorry, what was that?
No, it does not make someone more or less knowledgeable.
Okay, thank you. And about your gambling life, do you always keep your private life separate from your work life?
Yes, I do.
So does your gambling life affect your work at all?
No, it does not.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. I think the rules allow for recross, any recross examination?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Does the defense wish to call another witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
We call Dr. Devin Williams to the stand.
Okay, Dr. Devin Williams.
All right. Good afternoon, Dr. Williams. Today I'm going to ask you a few questions. All right.
All right.
Would you please state your name?
My name is Dr. Devin Williams.
Do you work at Lush Fertilizer?
I do work at Lush Fertilizer, yes.
And how long have you been working there?
I've been working at Lush for roughly a decade.
And what's your job description?
I lead the research and development teams at Lush Fertilizer, and as a research toxicologist, my role would be to essentially determine how different environmental interventions will affect biological systems.
Thank you. And have you received a PhD in toxicology?
Yes, I do have a PhD in toxicology.
Please look through your materials for Exhibit 9 and let me know when you're ready to proceed.
I am at Exhibit 9.
Are you familiar with Exhibit 9?
Yes, I am.
What is Exhibit 9?
Exhibit 9 would be my current curriculum vitae, which is setting forth my educational and professional work background.
Is everything on Exhibit 9 accurate?
I should assume so, yes.
Your Honor, I move the court to admit Exhibit 9 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
The court will receive Exhibit 9 into evidence.
Would you mind reading the first two bullet points under education?
The first bullet point states Colorado State University College of Pharmacy and Allied Health Professions, a PhD in pharmacotoxicology, and a master's degree in porcinic toxicology. And the second bullet point would state University of Utah and a bachelor's of science in toxicology.
All right, thank you. And after you got your PhD, did you continue to get any other certifications in toxicology?
Yes, I have certifications in Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Utah.
All right, and have you participated in any publications on toxicology?
Yes, I do have numerous publications.
Your Honor, permission to name Dr. Devin Williams as an expert in the field of toxicology.
Any objection from the plaintiffs?
No objection, Your Honor.
The court will recognize this witness as an expert in the field of toxicology.
Dr. Williams, I'm going to be asking you a few questions regarding Lush fertilizer, okay?
Okay.
Are you aware that Lush fertilizer is banned in France?
I am, yes.
Is Lush fertilizer banned anywhere else?
Lush fertilizer is in fact banned throughout the entirety of the European Union.
Are these bans over cancer risks?
No, those bans are not based on concerns over cancer risks.
Then why are these bans in place?
The European Union chose to prohibit the use of new fertilizer formulations that may contribute an incidental nitrate accumulation in lab tests, which are not congruent to real-world conditions, meaning that they didn't accurately reflect the positive effect that Drufo has in the real world.
All right, and moving on, I'm going to be asking you a few questions regarding your work with Drufo.
Okay.
All right. Were you involved in the testing of the safety of Drufo at Lush Fertilizer?
Yes, I was.
Did you find any statistical correlation of non-Hodgkin lymphoma or any other cancer with the use of Lush Fertilizer?
No, there was absolutely no statistical increase.
However, are you aware that some scientists believe Drufo can cause non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
I am perfectly aware that there would be scientists that might disagree with me, yes.
Do you know of Dr. Casey Rogers?
I am aware, yes, of Dr. Casey Rogers.
And are you familiar with Dr. Rogers' study on Drufo being possibly carcinogenic?
Yes, I am familiar with the study.
And what was the premise of this study?
The study was purportedly looking at groups of people who had various environmental exposures to see if Dr. Casey Rogers was able to draw any connection between Drufo and cancer.
Do you agree with his study?
I absolutely do not. It was not peer-reviewed, it was not replicated, and there were too many outside variables to determine whether the study was statistically valid.
All right, and now I'm just going to ask you a few questions regarding the development of cancer. So can cancer develop randomly?
Yes, cancer can develop randomly.
But does lifestyle also play a role in development?
Of course, lifestyle plays an enormous role in development of cancer.
And is fertilizer more dangerous for those who work with it more often?
Of course, which is one of the many reasons why Dr. Rogers' study is statistically invalid.
Do farmers and gardeners' work lifestyle put them at greater risk for developing things such as non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Precisely, yes.
Has this been statistically proven?
It has, yes.
And finally, according to your research, do fertilizers with DRUFO present an elevated risk of being carcinogenic in comparison with other fertilizers on the market today?
In comparison with other fertilizers, those fertilizers with DRUFO have not been correlated with any statistically significant increase in the incidence of non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
No further questions. Thank you for your time, Dr. Williams. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Ms. Hazelby. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. In general, would you agree that toxicology is a branch of science that studies the adverse effects of chemical substances on living organisms?
Yes.
And would you agree that forensic toxicology in general terms is the analysis of biological samples for the presence of toxins?
Yes, it is.
And according to your curriculum vitae, you are well versed in these topics?
I am very well versed in these topics, yes.
In fact, you currently teach 3 courses dealing with toxicology.
Yes, I do.
Does that keep you busy?
It does keep me busy, one could say, yes.
In addition to your teaching load, you also work at Lush Fertilizer?
I am part of the research and development team, yes.
And you are the lead research and developer, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
When you were promoted to lead the labs, it was largely to oversee work in the environmental impacts. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
You looked extensively into the impact excess nitrates have on the environment.
Yes, I am very well versed in that topic.
Did you look into the toxicology of DRUFO on human tissue?
I did, yes.
Are you sure?
My job was to oversee the safety.
Yes or no? Yes or no will suffice.
I understand. I apologize.
I will repeat my question. Did you look into the toxicology of DRUFO on human tissue?
Not specifically human tissue, no.
Did you look into the toxicology of DRUFO on any animal tissue?
Not specifically, no.
Did you do any lab investigations on the toxicity of DRUFO on biological tissue?
I did look at whether DRUFO could have caused cancer, and the results of that study were that it would not.
In fact, according to your statement, there is no evidence that you researched the impact DRUFO had on human biology.
That is incorrect. I conducted a study that showed there was no statistically significant increase in persons
You
who
also
were
remember
exposed.
that you did make a witness statement, right?
Yes, I did make a witness statement.
So are you sure?
I am sure, yes.
You base your conclusion on correlation of statistics, yes?
Yes, I do.
In other words, you compared human population and statistics in order to draw the conclusion that DRUFO did not cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yes, that is.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Devin Williams, to somebody unfamiliar with toxicology, how would you explain it?
Toxicology is the study of potentially harmful chemicals and effects and determining like how they could affect biological systems and how to neutralize that harm if it were to happen.
And do you use this in your work?
Of course I do, yes.
Thank you. No further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there any recross from the defense or from the plaintiff?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Does that conclude the defense witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So would the plaintiff like to present their closing argument?
Thank you, members of the jury, Your Honor, and opposing counsel for your time today. We had the burden of proof and we explained how Drufo was the cause of the plaintiff's health decrease. As we can see, Dakota's Weir's life has been hindered and shortened by Lush Fertilizer's poor insight. And for our witnesses, we had Carson, who had a promising future in the fertilizer industry, but Lush just couldn't see their potential. Casey Rogers, who is a brilliant scientist who dedicated her life to making numerous reports on chemicals and studying how it affects people. And of course, Dakota Weir's unfortunate illness at only 20 years old, who saw no warnings on Lush's fertilization and paid the unrightful price from it. On the defendant's side, they brought in Blake Donkert, who is only concerned about his awards and his profits. Skylar Weirs, who testified against his own sister and only came here because he was cut off from his dad for money. And lastly, we have Dr. Devin Williams, based on all her work on the environment, but not on human tissue. We had the burden of proof, and we are confident that we made our case clear that Dakota deserves justice from the despicable company called Lush Fertilizers.
Thank you. Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, counsel, members of the jury. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Today we have all gathered here and heard the tragic story of Dakota Weirs. The defense sympathizes with Dakota and their pain. However, Lush is not responsible for causing Dakota's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. After listening to Dakota today in this trial, it was clear that Lush was not responsible for this event, but there is one thing that is clear as day, and that is that Dakota failed to wear protective clothing when handling multiple fertilizers and chemicals products. Lush is to blame for all of this because of Drufo and Drufo alone? By using a plethora of chemicals and a variety of fertilizers, how likely is it truly that Dakota's cancer was solely caused by Lush's products? In fact, Dr. Devin Williams herself stated that there was no scientific proof that Drufo was correlated to causing cancer. Let us not forget that Lush not only provided recommendations for the user on their products, but remember that Dakota's boss clearly told Dakota to wear protective clothing as well. How was Lush to blame any more than Dakota's boss? If every product that could cause cancer had a label on it that stated, quote, "Watch out because I can cause cancer," nearly everything would have labels plastered all over them. This case truly is not about a company failing to label their products correctly. It has been made clear that Lush did that exactly. This case is about the irresponsible actions of a user that unfortunately resulted in an illness. Members of the jury, if you will examine instruction number 2 in your materials, it states, quote, "The plaintiff had damages that were caused by the defendant's negligence while the product was being used in a manner the defendant should have reasonably expected," unquote. Today, the negligence was not that of the defendant. The negligence was demonstrated through that of the plaintiff. Instruction number 8 states that, quote, "The plaintiff, Dakota Weirs, failed to do something that responsibly careful people would do under the same or similar circumstances to protect themselves from claimed danger made by the product," unquote. Members of the jury, I would like you to ask yourselves what you would do in this position. Does a reasonable person choose to follow the recommendations that are clearly being made when they are knowingly dealing with chemicals and fertilizers? Or does a reasonable person choose to ignore the obvious recommendations being made and bring these consequences amongst themselves? Although the plaintiff may argue that Dakota's workplace didn't really care about wearing protective gear, Dakota's peers didn't wear protective gear, this case is not about Dakota's peers and Dakota's workplace. This case is about Dakota's failure to wear protective gear. Dakota made that choice themselves. That was Dakota's own choice. In fact, no doctor has even told Dakota that they're going to die from this illness. So there's still clearly very much a future for Dakota and their life. There is one question that I will leave you with today. Who is truly responsible for Dakota's illness? The company that clearly labeled their products correctly? or the irresponsibility of a user. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right. So I believe we can take a few moments to have our scoring panelists share any feedback that they want for our team members, but do you need a few minutes to finish scoring before we do that? Or any of you want to share some thoughts that you might have?
Sure, I'll go first. My name is Grayson. I'm a public defender in Weld County. Thought you guys all did a really good job today. I know this isn't easy to do over Zoom. You handled all that really well. Good objections were made. Thought everybody spoke with confidence and did a really, really good job. I actually judged a law school mock trial earlier this morning, and you guys are not very far off from where they are at, and was super impressed with the work from all the competitors.
Thank you. Miss Barry Cheney.
Good job, everybody. More prepared than a lot of attorneys, for sure. I think that the hardest part of any kind of trial work is cross-examination. So you did a great job of thinking of things to cross-examine your witnesses on. It's definitely a challenge for me. I practice in family law, and now I'm practicing in, I've been a plaintiff's attorney, and then I've also practiced in employment law. So I've had some experience being in the courtroom, just like you all are doing now. So good luck to you all.
I'm not an attorney, I'm a teacher, and I did do some time as a juror for a trial in Weld County, but I thought you guys were amazing. I don't think I could do this. And so preparation and just your passion for it was very evident. So thank you. I enjoyed this afternoon.
And I'll just echo the comments that you had from the scoring panelists. I agree. You all did a phenomenal job. Attorneys who could learn from the examples that you gave today. A few things that I particularly liked seeing, I loved the transitions when you were either doing a direct examination or a cross-examination, when you were changing directions about what you wanted the witness to talk about. You gave us that clue that you were heading in a different place. That's great. I wish more attorneys did that in real life because I think it helps the listeners a great deal. You also did a really good job with laying foundation for the witnesses, telling the experts what they're, with the one exception that you had bad facts to work with, that expert really wasn't qualified to be an expert, but otherwise you did a really good job laying foundation for the admission of expert testimony, having them testify about their qualifications. You all really just need to be commended for doing this. Your families need to be commended and friends for supporting you in this great experience. Even if even if you don't go on to be a lawyer later in life, the lessons you take away from this in terms of being able to think on your feet and analyze things and think about things logically are great skills to take with you in whatever you do. So I wish you all the very best of luck. I commend you for doing this and congratulations. I think this is your last round for this tournament, and good luck to the teams who may go on to the next round. So thank you. And thank you to our volunteers for giving their time today too to be our scoring panelists. This program can't run without you, so it's greatly appreciated. So yes, well done. Well done.
Thank you to all of you, the scorers, judge, and all the participants. To let you know, we're anticipating being able to do a presentation of awards at about 4:15. So if you want to start trying to go into courtroom 1 at around 4:15, I don't know if they'll let you in right then, but if you're at least waiting, then they'll be able to admit everybody as soon as we're ready to do it. So,
thank you.
Thank you all.